Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 6 o'clock, we'll go ahead and get started with the Thursday, October 26, 2017 board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order, and we will start with the pledge. Director Gould.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Gould. The open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14, replay on Saturday, October 28, 2017 at 12 noon, and Sunday, October 29, 2017 at 9 a.m. on Channel 14, or webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. The open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. Now is the public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within the district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
We do have a speaker this evening, Mr. Roger Mitchell.
Mr. Mitchell.
Directors, Chief Harms, men and women of Metro Fire. My name is Roger Mitchell, lifetime resident, and I rise this evening to thank the board, the chief and his administration for the attendance of our fundraiser. To the members of the board that purchased our tickets, ones that gave donations and told us to give their tickets to a person that was deserving, we did that in your honor. And we appreciate that very much. It was the most successful fundraiser to date that we've had. Our speaker, as you well know, is Chief Harms, was well received in the community. And Chief Harms, a special note from the community, they certainly asked me to ask you back. They were very impressed with the report that you made on the fires that we've most recently seen. They well appreciated that. So they thank you very much for that. And we thank Chief Cassantini for being there, as well as for the administration. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that there was a group there that were certainly in uniform and that the chief could see, and I was proud of that these are members of the reserve as well as full-time members of this district that are on the team that are doing this restoration project. So Mr. Terry Barnes is a reserve at Station 116. He mainly is in charge of your water tender, but he also is a very passionate person. He takes care of the oldest apparatus that we have motorized, which is Rio Linda's first fire truck, affectionately known as Old Betsy, and he guards her, you might say, with his life. Mr. Mark Siebert, full-time employee of this district. In your logistics section, Mark is a very helpful person, spends many hours on this project. Mr. Scott Courtney, master mechanic in your shop facility. For the people that were there, he was your cook that evening. He does this professionally on his days off, so we appreciate not only what he does for this event, but he spends a good amount of time on the restoration work, donating some of his tools out of his own tool chest when we don't have that tool. And if he doesn't have the tool, if Metro Fire does, and it can't leave that shop, he works on his time off, whether it's on the weekends or after hours, tells us to bring the part over. So we appreciate him doing that in the district and allowing that to happen. Mr. Rob Driver, reserve for this district, spends many hours on the restoration. We appreciate him very much. Mr. Jess Burwell, reserve this district, again, many hours on the project. Mr. David Manley and Mr. Dennis Berry, both reserves, and I think the chief saw that. They had a couple engines there because they were there, and in the middle of the dinner had to get up and leave. So what I say about this is this project is starting to speak for itself. And when I say that, I mean that because of people like the ones that I've just mentioned to you, but organizations that I will mention to you that are behind this project, starting with Metro Fire, Rio Linda Rec and Park District, Local 522, Board of Supervisors, Sue Frost, Congressman Doug Osie's Family Trust, and our local chamber and Grange, and other organizations that are just in our community that they do a lot of work. So when you see a group like that are behind a restoration like this, It makes me feel good, because it's not people like myself, but it's the organization, and especially Metro Fire behind this, that are going to make it happen. We had a little fun at the event. We had a police officer in attendance, and our board chairman, Mr. Ted Woods, as long as the board chairman of the Rio Linda Park District, and then a board member from the Twin Rivers School District. We're in violation, and this gentleman is from the Shrine, the Keystone Cops, and as we well know, how much help the Shrine is with the Shriners Hospital for Children here in Sacramento. But they have a little fun, and those three people I just mentioned, why he found them in violation of eating and drinking non-alcoholic beverages and speaking in public. And their fine was simply to shake the hand of the officer that gave them that violation. So it was a little fun. Now, there are times when they come to an event, they lock you up in a cage and put handcuffs on you, and then somebody has to pay a fine to get you out. I suffered that embarrassment myself one time, and nobody would pay my fine. They all laughed, so I had to bail myself out. So anyway, we thank you for your support. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. It was far and away our most successful event. Our very first event that we had 32 people, and we made $500. It was in a much smaller venue, but thank you for your support. Director Kelly and Director Woods that were there, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and all of you at this dais that came and supported us, we thank you. Chief, a special thanks for your words of wisdom that you gave. It was well received, and we thank you very much. So I'm prepared at this time to answer any questions or listen to any comments that you might have about the project.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Are there any comments or questions from the
To
board?
the president of the board,
Sir.
what resources of the district have been used at this restoration? Is this one of our sites or something? And is it in Division 1? If not, I think I'd like to visit and see what's the procedures there.
Thank you for the question, but I would have to defer to Chief Harms or a member of his staff to comment on that as far as resources allocated towards this rebuilding.
At this time, the district doesn't have any resources that are allocated, and they do this by people donating money through the Park District, the Rio Linda Park District. The biggest part that we as a district do is we are supportive of their mission and their ability to preserve our history. And as Roger said, was that we have a lot of people that are very passionate that give in their own volunteer time to make make this successful.
The question is that the site, does it belong to the district or whom? Who does the site that the restoration is taking place? That's the question.
I don't know.
We
I'll have
don't
to
know.
find out.
Okay. Hold on. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Mr. Mitchell, would you like to comment on that, if you could?
The site where the restoration is taking place, if I may, Chief, with your permission, is the old firehouse in Rio Linda. It presently is under the ownership of this fine district. It is under lease to the Rio Linda Alberta Recreation and Park District by written agreement, and that agreement from the district is that they will also put that district, put the station as a museum. So there's a lot of work going on the station as well as the restoration of the truck. That I mentioned, Metro Fire's shop facility, again, has been very helpful. Now, I'll be honest, we don't interrupt the men when they're working. We don't do that. They donate their time off the clock, but it's nice to have a facility that might have a tool that you need or a machine that you need that would cost us a lot of money, and the men donate their time. So this district is with very due respect, very, very helpful in this restoration. The shop facility, and someone here might tell me that is not in District 1. I'm not sure which director. I believe it is Director Clark's district, or Director Kelly?
I believe it is my district.
Okay.
The district that I represent.
Yeah, and I apologize for not knowing that, but it's just, without that type of help, this would not be possible. So, any other questions?
No, I believe that's it.
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Mitchell. Thank you for coming in, and thank you for the kind words. Moving on to the consent items. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? I do have one, if we do. Any other questions? Okay. I do have a question regarding the pad that it was talked about. I imagine that fee is for working out of class. Is that correct? Is that what that fee is going to cover? Or that
The fee will cover the working out of class and then the backfill for the battalion chief that's being moved up.
Okay, very good. That was the only question I had.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we
I
adopt
have a
consent.
question, Mr. President.
Apparently, we're out of questions.
On the revision of the staff there, what methodology did they use in determining the shift of those positions or something? I did a bit of industrial engineering, and I was wondering, what is the technique for, to coming up to that decision?
So if you can refine your question, what exactly?
Was, we are changing some positions allocation on, what is it, revision of position and authorization document for temporary positions.
I believe in the packet it was for backfill as someone is leaving for a special assignment for 6 months. So
Yeah,
during
the
that
question is
backfill.
this, the purpose is this, is there something that is missing that we, lack of personnel to do it full-time, or it doesn't need a full-time person?
Well, I believe the person leaving for the special project was the chief of training, and that's what we need to train our personnel. So the person stepping into that position, I believe, is a BC, and so they're having to be, the pay should be commensurate with the title, which is filling in for chief of training.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Okay, if there's no other questions or concerns? Is the adoption still in to move? Still on the table?
Maybe
Yeah.
second.
Okay, we have a first and second, Madam Clerk.
Dr. Gale,
Yes.
Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
and Barnes.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to presentation items. Ms. Maddox, for the Stewardship Report, York Risk Services Group.
Good evening, Directors, Chief Harms. I'm Melissa Maddox, the HR Manager with Metro Fire. I'm here tonight with Tony Zuniga from York Risk Services, who is the district's third-party administrator for workers' comp. We're here tonight to provide you an overview of the trends in the workers' compensation program over the last 5 years. I will provide you just a brief overview of our internal claims process. Then Mr. Zuniga will go over in greater detail the trends we're seeing in workers' comp claims, the types of injuries, and the costs. When an injury happens, employees or their supervisor are required to complete the workers' comp packet, which includes all the paperwork. And those packets are located throughout the district in every station, or they're available online. And the injury notifications and the forms are forwarded to HR. We review the forms, and contact is made with the employee on the type of injury. And obviously, if the employee is too injured, then we would contact either their supervisor or even maybe one of their family members to try to get the claims process going as quickly as possible. So like I said, HR works with the employees to get the claim submitted and get the claim process started, which is a benefit in the end. It gets everything going faster. Once the claim has been submitted, HR will work directly with the employee and our claims examiner with York to get it processed, assist the employee with getting necessary medical care, and ultimately getting the employee back to work. Additionally, the injury information is submitted to our training division, who also looks for different trends in injuries, which can lead to better safety standards or purchasing better equipment that can help prevent those types of injuries. York Risk Services also tracks all the information that comes in with the claims and can provide the district with helpful data so we can see the trends, identify opportunities and challenges, and improve some efficiencies within the district's workers' comp program. So with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Zuniga to go over the presentation tonight and explain what the trends mean for the past, present, and the future of the district's work comp program.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. Welcome, Mr. Zuniga.
Thank you. Chief Harms, Directors, appreciate the time tonight to go over some data that we have. Just a little background. We've been partners with you since 2003, and also attending from York is our Vice President of Public Entity, Bettina Hooper. She's in the audience today. We are in a division that's dedicated to public entities. So we specialize in public entities, and we specialize in it. We structure ourselves that way so we can really understand your business and understand where the trends are and how to help you. So we've been long-term members, hope to be long-term partners, hope to be longer-term partners coming up. Today, I prepared a presentation for you. It's really a high level of what is going on with the program, where the injuries are occurring, where costs are. Part of my job is to really look at trends that are happening in workers' comp, see where your injuries are occurring, see where the medical care needs to be centered, and then also helping with safety. Part of that is monthly reports that we send to the district, but another piece of that is looking at these trends, then developing a plan with your staff to determine how do we fix those trends, or how do we help the injured workers better with safety equipment, or really, there might be some programs out there that we can really help that will limit your liability in the future. So a little high description of the program. And let's see, where is it on here?
Board report, Sacramento Metro Fire,
Yes, got it.
2012-17. If you want to double click on it.
One more up.
There we go.
No,
Oh, no, not that one.
up one.
Oh, darn.
There we go.
Yes.
Sorry.
Why won't it start the slideshow?
Left side, all the way to the left.
There could be a few slides there.
It's, there you go, right here.
From the beginning.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Thank you.
So you have a claims team that works in conjunction and partnership with your staff. Stephanie Gonzalez, she is the claims examiner that's dedicated to any claims that people lose time and they can't get back to work. We also have two other adjusters that handle claims that they can go to work, but they might just need medical care. They might need, there are other things going on there, but they're not going to lose time. So they're dedicated to those. And then Angela Long is a unit manager that's over that team. Jeff Ponta is our area vice president. Your claims team is in Stockton, California, and Jeff Ponta is over in all Northern California, and he is housed out of Roseville, where Bettina and I are also, that's where our offices are. And then Bettina is the vice president of public entity, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm the account executive that handles any reporting duties. Anything that's not claim related, then your staff will go to me and I'll work with them to get them any data that they need. So I put together some data just to give you a high-level understanding of where the program is and what type of injuries you're seeing. So first aid and report only is the first column. That's the blue. First aid, you know, if you can, our old saying is if you can treat it at Rite Aid, then it's first aid. That's the type of claim it is. And report only, sometimes they'll report it, but there's just reporting it because of an injury, but they're not going to miss time. They don't need any first aid. Indemnity are claims where you're going to lose time and they need medical care at the same time. You know, there was unfortunately one death on the books. And the medical only claims are claims where they don't miss any time, but they do need medical care. So as we start going through the 5 years, we like to trend it 5 years out because laws change, injuries change, businesses change, medical care changes. So when we trend data 5 years out, it really gives us a good idea of what's happening in the industry. For the district, your claim volume has continued to trend downward for a couple of years, and then upward and downward. It's kind of a bit of a roller coaster. But the past fiscal year, it definitely trended down with only 242 total reported claims. The good news with this is when we look at the indemnity claims, where people lose time and they're off the job, that's continued to trend lower and lower every year. Now, there are a couple of things that we see. The first is they're getting medical care quickly, and that's really a testament to your claims team and to the staff here at the district. We're able to get them medical care quickly, get them treated quickly. Also, we've really worked with your staff to have a return to work program and modified duty. So if we can get them back to work doing something, then it helps reduce the liability, and they get faster better. That's what we tend to see. Any questions on claims?
I have a question, that's a question.
Yes.
Yes, sir,
You're
Director
Mr.
Gill.
Zuniga?
Yes, I am.
This is a question, a side question. Was your father an industrial engineer in Triple MLE at McClellan some years way back?
He was not. No, my father was a bricklayer from New Mexico and then Colorado.
All right.
Wrong
Mr.
Zuniga.
Zuniga, I was under his wing for about a year.
Got it.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Yeah.
the question, but let's try and keep it relevant to what's being
course.
presented. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
All right.
Thank you.
The average cost per claim. Average cost per claim, we look at your closed claims to determine what the average cost is, because open claims, it's a running number, so it's not really a good measure of what's happening there. And we take a look at all your claims, we take a look at all the payments, fees, whatever might go into that claim to come up with an average cost per claim. So when we look at the trend for your average cost, it did trend up last year, and the year before that, down, a little bit of roller coaster, but it's in direct correlation with the number of reported claims. So when you look at 14, 15, 15, 16, claims are up, where we see the cost per claim is going to increase the next 2 years after that because the claims develop. So when we look at this, the average cost per claim did go up, but it's going up in correlation with the number of reported claims that are out there. So we don't see anything with this particular type of, with the number of reported claims or with the average cost per claim that's really alarming right now. It seems to be right in the wheelhouse with what we've seen the past 5 years. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from the board? Thank you, Mr. Zuniga.
Closing ratio. So the way we measure, one way we measure a program, we want to close more claims than we get in. The longer claims are on the books, the more expensive they are. So we develop a tracking mechanism called a closing ratio. The closing ratio for the district has been just fabulous. And again, this is a big partnership with the staff and with your claims team. So in 16, 17, we closed 117%. That means that we're closing more than we're out there. Now, it's more because our old claims are on the books that are beyond these 5 years. So that's why it looks like that. Theoretically, I guess if the closing ratio was always above 100%, the claim count would be going down, but that's not always the case. Closing claims is a huge deal. It really controls your future liability for the district and all their expenses. So we do everything we can to close claims appropriately and as quickly as possible. Next one is your lost days of injuries within the same fiscal year. So any injuries that happened during these years, and these are the lost days that are on the books, and your lost days continue to trend lower and lower, even though your indemnity claims and claim count go higher. This is another, and this stat is great. It's great because it means we're getting people into modified duty. We're getting them to do something because they get better faster. Medical treatment is better. They're able to get back to their full-time duty much faster. And this is a great partnership with the staff and the claims team, because we identify those that have abilities. We look at what they can do, what they can't do. What can they do? And then we go to staff and see if there's something for them to do. So I'm getting more into the financial aspect of the program now. Total paid during fiscal year regards of injury date. So these are the total expenses of your work comp program for those claims for this fiscal year. Now, this data shows all your claims data regardless of when the injury day is. So there could be a claim in here from 5, 6, 7 years ago, but it's still going to count because they're receiving medical care. And as you can see, it has continued to trend up. There are two factors that's trending up for the district. The first factor is medical care is just getting more expensive. We're seeing that with surgeries, we're seeing that with medications. The next piece is you did have a peak of claims in 14, 15, 15, 16, and again, that drives up the cost as the claims, as we go through the claims and try to get them closed and get them medical care. So with your claim count dropping and us closing a significant number of claims every year above 100%, we expect that to start dropping the next 2 fiscal years. Recoveries are usually third-party recoveries that we get. Someone's in an auto accident, then we will look at that and we will subrogate those claims and try to get money back for the district. So this measures what we're getting back for the district, and once we get that back, it's credited to the claim file, and it's money that's owed to the district that we get back for you. That's part of the services that we provide. It's part of what our claims adjusters are audited on. They always look for subrogation opportunities where we can get money back for the district. Temporary disability. Temporary disability is paid for your non-sworn employees. So if they're injured, then they fall under the regulations for temporary disability. With that, you could see that it's not really a big piece of the pie for the district, because you mostly have sworn officers and personnel out there, and it's trending pretty steady. We don't, the types of injuries we're seeing from your non-sworn we don't see anything alarming with them. They're injuries that we see on a regular basis with any administrative with public entity. Now, 4850 is a benefit specific to your sworn personnel, and it takes the place of temporary disability. And that's where the bulk of your, this is the lost time for your injured workers. That's what 4850 is. So when they lose time, they're made whole with this benefit. This is the majority of the benefits you're paying out for lost time is 4850 for the district. And you can see that it runs pretty steady. The good news with this is, as we mentioned before, you had some peak of claims the past 2 fiscal years, but your 4850 has remained pretty steady. Along with your lost days dropping, that means that we're able to get people modified duty and really partner with the district to get people, look at their abilities and see what they can do and get them better faster if they can get back to work and do whatever tasks are available to them. So I broke out your expenses by fiscal year by different categories, and I'll explain them. Expense payments are anything that has to do with that claim, whether it is medical, or I'm sorry, not medical, anything that's not medical. So they could be fees, they could be attorney costs, anything like that. Indemnity payments is that temporary disability at 4850 that we spoke about. Medical payments, anything that has to do with medical care. And then a claim administrative fee is the fee the district pays us for our services. So when we go through here, the indemnity payments lost time is always going to be the highest, and so that's what we see throughout the industry. That's always going to be the highest expense that you have with it. That's why it's so important for us to work on your lost days and modified duty to try to reduce some of that liability for your indemnity payments. Medical payments are trending higher. I mentioned that medical care is just getting more expensive. We look at that, and I have a slide later on that will explain a little bit more about the medical care and what we can do to try to limit your liability. So I broke out just the top 5 injuries. We have numerous injuries. The cause of injury is what they were doing at the time of the injury. It's the cause. So strain, lifting, pushing is always the top. Miscellaneous for this presentation, and I tried to dig into that for you, 235 claims there. I thought maybe there might be a coding issue, but they are just a number of different injuries that are multiple actions that were occurring. Weren't quite sure what to put them in there, so I'm working with the claims team, and and as part of our next step in this process, we're going to go through all those claims and see really where they are and what the problem is with those. You can see that strain lifting is definitely the highest severity that costs the district the most money with medical care compared to all the others. So it's something that we will really focus on this upcoming year and work with your staff to identify those causes and see if there's something we can do to help you. The top body part, backs, for a fire district, the back and knee are usually the top. In this case, for Metro, the back area is the highest. Multiple body parts. You all know in the field, someone falls, they're gonna get multiple body parts injured, or something falls on them. So that's usually the second highest whenever we see it for a fire district as well. Any questions on causes or the body parts?
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Director Gould.
It'd be interesting to overlay on top of this the top 5 causes of injury. It'd be interesting to track that with our new gurney lift operations. It'd be kind of interesting to see what impact that gurney process has had. That was one of the major reasons we invested in that tool or set of tools. So it'd be interesting down the road to kind of have that overlaid and see if that's actually, we're realizing the savings or the decrease in injury. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I will, I'll work with your staff and we'll see what we can do to measure that.
Director Orzali.
Do we also look at trend data comparing, say, Metro Fire to other similar agencies? And if we do, does this seem to be industry-wide?
So our database can compare other similar clients, so we can do that. I haven't done an analysis like that for Metro, but we could do it. I can tell you that the other public entities I have that have fire and police in it, that back injuries, knees, and strains and lifting are usually the top 1 or 2 in the industry.
We'll be the best, don't worry about it.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Zink.
Oh, I had one more slide, but where did it go? No, the bill review is not there. But we can provide that at a later date. Unless it's on here for number 2. No. Okay, so I have, the last slide was really questions. Does the board have any questions for York or any of our business or how we're structured?
Okay, any questions or comments? No. Thank you for the presentation tonight. Appreciate
Thank you very
your
much, I
time.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Director Barnes?
Yes,
Can I
Chief.
just for a second, speak on some of the things that he brought up?
Please do, sir.
You know, I just want to take a second and talk about the membership and what they do day in and day out as far as their activity, and then lay it over the injuries that happen out there. And what I have seen is that there truly is a care for each other. And you brought up one of my things of a lot of injuries in the past was that lifting and the inability to do something properly because they're between the bed and the wall, and the ability to reach over and do those. We see those injuries as that immediate acute injury, and then, as you said, that wear and tear that they hit 20 years of doing this job. And then we spent a lot of days here just recently talking about exposures and how those exposures over time, we don't see them immediate, but we see them down the road. If you laid over our activity level for the last 5 years, on top of the injuries, I think what you would see, and I don't know how we would figure it out, but I know what you would see is this upward slope of of activity, call volume, nighttime call volume. But at the same time, I think we would see injuries have either stayed the same or they have gone down. And as you said, the cost of them has gone up also, but the activity level, the deployments that we have seen just in this past week, and Chief Bridge will talk about it, 14 days of deployment with no injuries out there. That happens because they care and that they're out there. Certain things, we talked last board meeting of spending, I think it was close to maybe $3 million on protective equipment. And that protective equipment, and in my mind, the equipment that we wear, the breathing apparatus that we have on, truly we're protecting our members. And there's a financial side of it, but we should buy the best stuff that we have to be able to do it. We did the CPR devices in the back of the ambulances so people can stay buckled in. Traditionally in the fire service, we drive so much. A number of our injuries are because of that high activity level. The last thing that again, bragging on the members, is that when the economy gets bad, generally what happens is training is cut and safety. And a lot of it is focused back into the field. In our safety division within the PAD, there is actually positions that are in there to support the safety side of it, research, injury prevention, and we have not been able to put those back in. I'm very appreciative tonight on the PAD is that we know that our investment in training will have a positive effect in the response side of it, but we also know that on the injury prevention and the outcome side of it will have a great effect on it. So Chief Bridge will talk more about it. We've spent the last couple of days talking a lot about cancer and how do we change a culture of exposure. But I think for us, one of our challenges is how do we reinvest back into safety? and how do we reinvest on the position side and as a culture within the organization, because the membership is doing it, and for us as management, we have to be able to support back into them. So thank you for letting me talk there.
Thank you, Chief Harms, for your comments. It would be interesting also to find out some of those injuries. You know, if you're up during the day and you're moving around and all of a sudden you get to a call, you're still warm because you're moving around, or if you're asleep in bed at 2:30 in the morning, you get a call and you're having to do a heavy lift. I would imagine or would suspect that's where some of those injuries are coming from.
Well, it's that, and then, I mean, someday we could probably go into it and look at back injuries. And backs, shoulders, and knees are traditional for the fire service. The back is pretty much, the first time injuring it, you feel better, and within 4 months, you injure it again. And so some of these may be, and I'm not sure if it's in there, is that it's a duplicate injury. Shoulders traditionally are the longest to recover, and knees are some of the most expensive, I think.
Very good. Thank you, Chief Harms. Thank you for the presentation tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Mission Driven Culture Initiative. Chief Casantini.
Good evening, Board of Directors, Fire Chief Harms, Metro Fire staff, and members of 522. Greg Casantini, Deputy Chief Administration. I'm here to talk tonight about Mission Driven Culture Initiative. So in order to address board strategy number 6 from the 5-year strategic plan and under the direction of Chief Harms, Metro Fire entered into a contract with Mission-Centered Solutions. Now, as a reminder, Board Strategy 6 addresses organizational sustainability and professional growth planning, one of the most difficult board strategies that we had. Metro Fire has been using mission-centered solutions for several years now regarding leadership classes. Now Metro Fire is going to focus on mission-driven culture initiative. So what is the mission-driven culture? Organizations shape their culture through doctrine, but mostly through the influence of their leaders. For this reason, strengthening culture begins with leaders at all levels. Followers ask permission, and in its absence, wait to be told what to do. Metro Fire needs team members that are constantly seeking to influence their environment to accomplish the mission. Mission-driven culture defines key values of culture and attitudes that generate cohesive and adaptive action, strengthening resilience in times of uncertainty. MDC focuses on training people how to think and not what to think. Over the next 2 years, mission-driven culture will be integrated into Metro Fire at many levels, which include training, promotional testing, professional staff, job performance, leadership development, and succession planning. MCS will work with Metro Fire to establish a formal internal leader development resource that will manage and provide a vision for our leadership development. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Director Gill.
On your organization, for some reason, I work for the Fed, and we had industrial engineers and technicians who saw these workplaces, modification. We did constantly do a study on it, if there seemed to be a trend and injuries or whatever. We modified the workplace or whatever. We had classes on that constantly. This is something when we had reports, and when the manager have a meeting with his constituents, the people who work with. These were the things that were explained and enforced. And industrial, maybe an industrial engineer would be quite helpful to this organization.
Director Gill, was there a comment? Was that a comment or a question?
That's a comment. As an organization I was in.
Okay.
We had engineers and whatever.
Very good.
So
Thank you.
we had industrial engineers and technicians who took that and modified the workplace.
Thank you, Director Gill.
Thank you
for
very
your
much.
comments. Any other questions or comments from the board? If not, thank you for your presentation this evening.
Thank you, directors.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to action items. Lease agreement with University of California for first floor here in this building. Economic Developer Manager Jeff Fry.
Well, thank you, and good evening, Directors, Chief Harms. Prior to the board taking action this evening on the proposed lease, I just want to take a few minutes and talk you through the timeline and how we got here today, and maybe give you some insights into the lease and lease structure itself. It started ultimately with the vacancies that are leaving the space downstairs at the end of last year. We retained CBRE to help us with the marketing of the space. And in some of those initial meetings with CBRE, we did a market analysis and realized that we had a couple of property challenges. The first is the amount of vacant office space on the Highway 50 corridor. Through that market analysis, we realized there was about 18 properties competing with us around the same amount of square footage. So we knew we were going to have to be pretty aggressive in our marketing strategy. The second is the financing structure and how we finance this building. We are limited to the tenant we can put in there, and that can be a government organization or a nonprofit. And then I think thirdly is the square footage alone. The size of the space is pretty large, and we would have to be working with some of those larger agencies to fill that space. So from about February to currently, we did show that space twice to two different agencies. We showed it to UC Davis Health early on in the process, I believe somewhere in March. Very interested. As the agency they had to do their due diligence and look at a number of properties and go through their approval process. As I mentioned, there was a second state agency that we had considered, wasn't a great fit, and I think in the deal terms they originally presented, it just didn't work well for the district and what we wanted to accomplish. So ultimately, UC Davis Health did come back around with a term sheet. We felt like it was a good fit. The university regents and Davis Health is what we call in industry a credit tenant. They're going to be a good lessee. They're going to be around, pay the bills on time, be good partners. And the second is I think there's some complement to the district's mission. They are in the healthcare industry, and we felt like there was could be a good relationship there. Lastly, in terms of negotiation, after sitting with Chief Harms, my takeaway, and probably the biggest point, was trying to get a longer-term lease to get a tenant in there and comfortable. Obviously, the vacancy is kind of a disruption to the district. It kind of takes away from our core mission and what we're trying to do here. So I think in structuring the term sheet in some of those negotiations, we are trying to get a longer-term tenant in there and get them comfortable so we can get back to what we do well. So with that said, we did offer a number of incentives. Most of them were market-based and what we saw in the marketplace. A tenant improvement allowance of $20 per square foot for a total of around $826,000. That is pretty competitive in the marketplace. Those TI allowances can get up to $40 per square foot in the marketplace. And for comparison, for Sutter in the space before, I think we gave them a $25 per square foot tenant allowance. We are going to give them a move-in allowance of around $61,000, to be specific, $61,962, essentially to relocate them from where they are today and move them into the space downstairs. We also offered a 6 months free rent. That free rent is at the beginning of the term. So we would complete the tenant improvements, they would be in the space for 6 months, and then rents would commence for the remainder of the term, which is 7 years. And then something that I think was the icing on the cake, if you will, is we had taken all the system furniture, Sutter Health left it in place. They donated it to the district. We left it there hoping that leaving it as turnkey as possible would essentially incentivize a tenant that was looking for space quickly to come and utilize it. So that was a zero cost to the district. Again, it was donated from Sutter. We left the furniture in place. In the proposed lease agreement, we allow the new tenant to use it. And we also basically say it's an as is. There's no warranty or responsibility of the district to maintain that furniture. And lastly, so in the lease analysis, when we looked at the income stream, if you will, over the course of the 7.5-year term, We project that we will collect about $5.9 million. Our total expenses after our operating expenses, escalations, repair and maintenance, service, utilities, and supplies, and a portion of the debt service attributable to the downstairs. We believe those entire costs are around $5 million. And we expect that the lease itself will produce about $817,000 in revenue to the district. And with that, I do want to make one note. In the staff report, we said the total brokerage fees was $395,000. I did run all my numbers this morning. It's actually less, $316,000. Just want to make the board aware of that number. Moving forward, should the board approve the lease, the next step would be to complete the TI, the tenant improvement project. And the reason why we structured the recommendation the way we did is that there will be a number of agreements that the district would have to enter to complete those tenant improvements. Probably an agreement with an architect, and then following that is probably an agreement with a general contractor to complete those. So we're asking the board to approve the chief to enter in those agreements to the extent that they don't extend or don't exceed the TI allowance in the agreement. And I will stop there and ask for questions or comments from the board.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. Any questions or comments from the board? Director Kelly.
If I could, handsome fee for the real estate agent, to be sure. But I did want to comment, I did read where we are possibly responsible for providing a new air conditioning unit of some type for the IT room. If memory serves me, UC Davis had an IT department in that downstairs area. Didn't they have an appropriate air conditioner in the IT in their server room?
They do, and we believe that the HVAC unit serving those would be more than adequate. I think that's just the TI or the IT folks from UC Davis haven't fully vetted.
They've run into this problem before, and they want to make sure it's in the
Correct,
contract in
yes.
case they need it. Okay.
Correct. And if there is a need, that would come out of that 800 and that
Right.
TI allowance. And if it were over the TI allowance, that would be their cost to bear.
I got you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a
Director
question.
Gale.
Well, I was looking at the number of spaces that they're requesting, like 250 or something. Will that impact us in any kind of way?
We don't think so. No. They do need a lot of parking spaces. They are going to have a lot of people down there. Again, this is UC Davis Health. It's their administrative back-of-house staff, if you will. So I don't have an exact number. I think the anticipated number of employees is around 230, 240 or something like that. We had enough parking to accommodate Metro Fire and UC Davis. We did, if you recall, a few months ago, secure some additional parking across the street. That is to accommodate some of their employees to minimize the impact on the district. And it's also so we can park some apparatus. So we have additional parking across the street.
Fantastic. And the other one was on the Article 31, estoppel certificate. I haven't seen that term in a long time. Could you explain that a little bit? It's been a long time.
Mr. Lavra, can you help us out? I do have a vague understanding of it.
I have to admit that this was reviewed and approved by my partner, Greg O'Day. I can certainly look at it and respond back to you in short order. I don't know that I'm able to do it here on the fly.
Are you comfortable with it?
It's been reviewed and approved by my office, yes.
Oh, fantastic. No problem. Okay.
Sorry, I should have mentioned that. No. Key part there.
You're right. Thank you, sir. If there's no other comments or questions, can I get a motion?
So move.
Can I have a motion? Can I get a second?
I make a second.
And a second. Madam Clerk.
Director Gale.
Yes.
Gould.
Aye.
Orzali.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
and Barnes.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to you and your team and the negotiations team to get a reputable partner downstairs.
sir. Appreciate
Being
that.
vacant is definitely not cost effective for us, so we appreciate that. So don't go far, because you're up again for direct the sale of surplus real property.
So, as you recall, I was before the board in July asking the board to declare this property a surplus, so this is a follow-up to that item. We did go through the Surplus Property Act, essentially put the property out, or let agencies know in the area that the district no longer needed this property and it was available for purchase. As you can imagine, there was only one offer, and that was from the Water District. And they had offered us $2,500 and to pay all the closing costs. So I would like to remind the board of a couple of things. We did not appraise this piece of property simply because we knew the value was nominal, and the cost of the appraisal, it didn't make a lot of sense. And there's really not a lot of marketability. I mean, there's one user intended here. So I think the bigger picture that I'd like to convey to the board is that for the district, there's really no operational value to this property or to hold on to it. And I think the sale still maintains the original spirit of the ground lease, which was essentially having that relationship with the water district. They needed land to build it. We wanted access to water in an emergency. I believe that relationship will maintain, but it gives them a little more ownership and control over the piece of property that they need. So again, we're recommending the sale of the property, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about this one.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? If
Mr.
not-
Chair, I make a motion that we adopt.
Okay, I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a second. Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Gould.
Aye.
Orzali. Sheets.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
And Barnes.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. And I agree with you. Keeping that partnership with the Water District is going to keep that going for us for a long time. So thank you. Need water, right? Okay, moving on to President's Report. If the board would oblige, Director Jones could not make it tonight, but she had asked that we recognize a member of the fire industry who had recently passed away. So I would like to read this, and then we will be hopefully taking a moment's silence at the end prior to closing. This is regarding Chief Alan Brunacini. Retired Chief Alan Brunacini, AKA Bruno, passed away Sunday, October 15, 2017, in his hometown of Phoenix, Arizona. He moved to Phoenix as a young man, and in 1958, he joined the Phoenix Fire Department. He moved up from the fire department ranks, holding every sworn position. Along the way, he took note of what worked, what needed fixing. When he promoted to the fire chief in 1978, Bruno sparked a much-needed revolution. A gentle-hearted philosopher with a keen wit and kind disposition, his leadership creed was sincere, smart, and simple. Prevent harm, survive, and be nice. Bruno's primary focus was firefighter safety. Second only to that, he told his chargers, take gentle care of our citizens. He was a dedicated advocate for Mrs. Smith. That's the name he chose to represent any fire department customer. Treat Mrs. Smith with respect, he said. Be kind, show compassion. Bruno retired from the Phoenix Fire Department in 2006 after 48 years of passionate service. Bruno continued lecturing, writing, and teaching. Bruno was always learning, and you would often see him scribbling notes on 3x5 cards he kept in his pocket. He had faith that anyone at any time could have something clever to say, and he didn't want to miss it. He lives on as the angel on our shoulders, reminding us to be nice, even when it's difficult. Thought that was a kind gesture by Director Jones, and I was glad to be able to read it. And coming from your alma mater, Chief Harms, would you like to make any comments on this?
You know, I was able to spend over 20 years as he was my fire chief. And the influences that he had on me, and it happened to be at the event with Roger that I spoke about my dad and his involvement in the fire service, and then Bruno's involvement, and that the impact that they had. And the unique thing was that both of them loved old fire engines. And he had really restored old engine number 1 and built a fire station next to his house that his wife often, when we would stop by to see it, would say that he loved that engine more than he loved her. But it was a huge influence. I find myself doing things and talking and thinking, much as he had taught us as a very young firefighter. We lost a firefighter, and he asked me to help with the recovery of it, and had the opportunity to work very, very closely to him during that time. And probably about 2 months ago, he called just to see how things were going over here and what was going on. And he would be the person to say, what are you doing about safety, or what are you really doing about leadership? And still to this day challenge all of us that were very close to him. So for me, it's a huge loss, and I'm sure there's going to be, it hasn't happened yet. I'm very thankful for that time I had with him, but I know there's going to be that time that something's going to happen, and I'm going to wish I could have called him. So I appreciate the gesture tonight, and thank you for the support.
Absolutely. Thank you for the comments. Moving on to the fire chief's report. You're up again, Chief Harms.
I'm back up again.
You're back up again.
Thank you. Just a few things going on. We had a promotion ceremony, or not a promotion, a badging ceremony here this week with the SRPs of both medics and EMTs that had finished their academy. And it was just really neat to see the young members that were in here. I believe there was 11, wasn't there 11 that were here that we went through and did? That was absolutely tremendous. On October 19th, Fire Inspector 2, Angela Broqua, was promoted into that position. And I think the back end of that, it's very easy to say it, but what they go through to become a Fire Inspector 1 and then be checked off, and then Fire Inspector 2, and you see them here, and you guys see them walking around, and they got a book that's about that thick of code stuff, that they can go to the book, but part of it is just knowing to go to the book that I need to look the things up. So we're very proud of her. We have a recruitment open right now for Communications Technician 2. We opened up a lateral firefighter paramedic recruitment that is going on. The applicants have to be currently employed with another fire agency as a full-time firefighter paramedic. They have to have at least 3 years of experience. They have to have a National Registry paramedic or a California paramedic card, Firefighter 1 certification from a accredited system. And it's just one of those opportunities of what we're trying to do is look at a larger base of folks for our recruitment. And it was something that labor and management sat down probably at least 6-7 months ago and started talking our way through it. We talked a lot about when we had done this in the past and some of the challenges. After the first meeting, we realized we needed to bring HR, and Melissa came to our next meeting because we all were sitting there talking about this great thing that we wanted to do, but it was kind of her shop to put it together. We'll have an academy class that will start on 18-1 that they're managing, and then this would be the second academy class during the year of 18-2. And so kind of between labor management and with the help of HR, we've really said, let's give it a try. And if it doesn't work, at least it's something that we're trying to improve recruitment and that diversity of that pool that is out there. A number of command staff meetings, day staff meeting with the union. Chief Bridge spent a few days at the Firehouse Expo in Nashville. I think he'll talk about that. The Sacramento County Fire Chiefs meeting was just recently, and then the last 2 days, Chief Bridge and I did 4 sessions on professional development program. And so we did, I think, 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the afternoon that members at any rank in the organization or as companies could come in, and we probably had 35 or 40 at each session, and we just sat and talked. And we talked about leadership and talked about the expectations, and had a very lively conversations and had a kind of a forum that people really got involved in. We had about 30 PowerPoint slides, and we got through on average 3. So it was very good. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief Harms. Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Moving on, operations report, Chief Bridge.
Okay, good evening, Directors, Chief Arms, Eric Bridge, Operations Chief. Brief report tonight, but just wanted to touch on a few things that our crews have returned from the fires to the west and to the north, with our last ones returning on this Monday. So good news to report that all of them returned without any injuries. A few of them are itchy a little bit from some poison oak, but it's hard to avoid that on these events. Also, our Air Operations Division is participating in an exercise in Alameda, in the Alameda County area. It's called a Mobile Aerial Radiological Surveillance. This is an exercise where provides first responders with the necessary skills to plan and execute an aerial surveillance mission for the detection of illicit or radiological or nuclear materials. Also instruct first responders on the proper procedures to conduct aerial group surveys after radiological release. So not a lot of air assets in the Northern California region that are able to do that. So hopefully we'll never have to use it, but we'll be prepared if that were to occur. Also, we, as Chief Harms mentioned, had the opportunity to go to Nashville to Firehouse Expo, which is a big event on the East Coast, predominantly recruiting a lot of the East Coast departments. However, there are a few West Coast, Los Angeles County Fire Department, and we were represented there. It's a good opportunity, though, to see through the international fire service throughout for mainly the U.S., but we do have some international exposure out there as well. So we're talking about a lot of different things and a lot of networking going on, and bringing back mainly my focus there was on operations and dealing with implementing a lot of research that comes back from UL and NIST. So we're providing that release of information to our members through our operations training at the fire grounds at Station 52, where we have our live fire training. So looking forward to doing that. And as Chief Harms mentioned, we did have some good discussions yesterday and the day before with our members in terms of leadership and what our expectations are of that. And it was very good, and we had a lot of discussion too there on cancer prevention. So we're excited about that, and in terms of some measures that we can take place right after a fire, for example. So there's a lot of things that can happen, a lot of information coming. And we plan on doing our part, and I know our members, nobody wants to see anybody with cancer, so we're going to be taking the necessary actions to prevent and do our part. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief Bridge. Any comments or questions? The only thing I have is I just want to say thank you to all of you for looking into the exposure side of things. As you see in the firefighter memorial, the names that are introduced into that shrine, so to speak, is predominantly exposure from years past. And so thank you for looking into that and looking after the person.
Yeah, I noticed there was, when I read that, 33 names added this year, and 28 of them are from cancer.
From exposure. Yeah, that's correct. Thank you very much. Local 522. Captain Bailey, welcome.
Good evening, Chief Harms, Board of Directors. I've served as a vice president the last 6 years, overseeing Metro Fire. I'm seeking election as the president of 522. I'm running unopposed, so I will be continuing to work with you in the president position January of 2018. But this evening, I would like to introduce to you Trevor Jamison. He will be the vice president as of January 2018, overseeing Metro Fire. So, thank you.
Good evening, Directors, Chief Arms. Just want to say I'm super excited. I too ran unopposed, so it was a hard-fought election. Kind of took the job over a little sooner than I thought. So I'll be transitioning with Ty, working with him, working with the chief and all his staff. And then as well, I'm open to meet with you as the year goes on and like to get to know you all. So I'm super excited to represent 522 and work with everyone here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd just like to know your secret to run unopposed. I don't know if any one of us have ever been that lucky at this point. So if you can share your wisdom, we would take it. Any comments or questions? No. Thank you for being here tonight. Congratulations to both of you. Okay, moving on to committee and delegate reports. Executive committee has not met, and we do not have any scheduled meetings in the near future. Communication Center JPA, Chief Johnson.
Good evening, directors. We have not met since your last meeting. However, we're meeting tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, right in this room.
Questions or comments? If not, thank you very much. California Fire Rescue JPA, Director Kelly.
Yes, the JPA's next meeting is scheduled for November 16th.
Okay. Thank you very much. Finance and Audit Committee, Director Kelly once again.
The Finance and Audit Committee met this evening. We looked at expenditures and revenues over 2 months that have passed since we adopted our full budget, and things are more or less right where they expect them to be, where we should expect them to be, and things look, it's too early to tell if there's any trending one way or another.
Great, thank you very much. And Policy Committee, Director Gould.
November 9th, that illustrious group will gather.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to board member comments and questions prior to go to closed session, so hopefully all of you can rush out here and spend time with your families. So I will start to my right, Director Gale.
I appreciate the world according to Bruno. Always keep it with me.
Very good.
Fantastic.
Very good. Director Gould.
I just want to say thank you to all the men and women who participated in the fires that have been going on. Just the amount of devastation that they must have seen must have been overwhelming. And as I had an opportunity to be over in that part and drive through the Napa Valley, it was really impressive to see all the handmade signs that were hanging in virtually every edifice and every storefront and every winery. There was some kind of thank you to first responders and firefighters. And that's really what America's about, not all this other stuff you read about. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gould. Director Orzali.
And just to follow that on, I had the opportunity to be in Fort Bragg, and I was quite taken by the fact that when you went into businesses there, every single business had on their register directions for refugees, people who were coming from the Napa Valley, where they could find resources, what could be done for them, and a thank you to the first responders for what they had done. It was gratifying to see.
Thank you. And Director Sheets.
Thank you. I wanted to thank everybody for the presentations. They were very informative. Congratulate all those who promoted. Congratulations, Ty and Trevor. And so thankful that our crews are home and safe.
Thank you, Director Sheets. Director Kelly.
Yes, I owe an apology to former Director Mitchell. You were right, Roger. That is Mr. Director Delman Clark's district. So I stand corrected. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. The only thing I have tonight is what we've talked about. I've always said it's a first-class organization. I think we've heard it here tonight, right? When we can bring a heavy hitter in like UC Davis coming in as a tenant and as a long-term partner, that is always great for us. So excited to hear about the exposure, how you're looking into it for the personnel, the care to prevent cancer so they can live long into their retirement as is earned. Also, again, to revisit the lateral and be able to sit down from the local 522 and the management team to actually come up with a plan to get good quality candidates. Sometimes it's already pre-trained and they can hit the ground running, so great job on that. Last thing, we have Halloween next week, so hopefully you're all able to enjoy some time with your families. But I want to thank all of you for being here tonight, and we are going to go into closed session. Thank you.
Director Barnes, if I may, yes, the board met in closed session on two items. One was the litigation of Valentine versus Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District, and the other was a conference with its lead negotiator. In both of those cases, the board took no action. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next board meeting will be in these chambers November 9th, 2017 at 6 p.m. And before we conclude the meeting, we'd like to do a moment of silence as respectfully requested by Director Jones for Chief Alan Brunacini, aka Bruno. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Meeting adjourned.